There's a groove that I can follow that's exactly right for exactly right for
Sometimes when I try to reason, you don't seem to listen at all. I don't know if it's just a feel.
Hi, welcome to Control Talk Now, your smart buildings video cast and podcast for the week ending July 17th, 2017. This is episode 232 of Control Talk Now. We keep getting up there in episodes. We keep doing it every week. That's because we got the hardest working man in show business, the man, the myth, the legend, the one, the only, your co-host and mine, the one, the only, Kenny Smyers, the control guy from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Kenny, welcome to the show. Big dog.
Well, thank you very much, Eric. Because again, that's always fun to get that battery going there. Because I mean, that's a good motor starter. It gets me going, and I can't help but suppress a smile because, like you say, if you ever need to get if you're ever looking for work, you can always work inside of an arena with one of those bells that they pull down from the ceiling. You know, when they have those Las Vegas fights. You know,
dude, I'm already getting into wrestling, man. Professional wrestling. That's why I figure if it's good enough for Donald Trump, it's good enough for me, man. I'm going to be a wrestling announcer. That's my next move because I figure from smart buildings to wrestling, man, there's got to be a correlation, right?
It's one of those progressions, you say, processions. I mean, yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, total. It's just a 90. It's a pivot point. That's all.
Yeah. All right, Big Dog. Well, listen, man, we have such an awesome guest coming on a little bit later in the show. We're going to save that for when we actually get him on. But let's just say one of the themes we've been talking about, one of the trends we've been tracking is analytics and how you use them, tags, how you use them. And so one of the things both those things allow you to do is things like retro commissioning, constant commissioning, and our guest is going to give you the 411 on why you should be doing that. So, but hey, Kenny, I tell you what, before we get to that, man, we had a couple posts this week. What do we have up first? Go ahead.
Well, yeah, the first one was kind of a dry socket one. It's the green build ABX 2017. We're all in. This is a really neat concept. This is everyone, every project, everywhere. We are all in, and this is like probably the most staunch call to the green concepts. In other words, this is where, like, if you go to Realcomm, IBCon, you learn a lot about everything to do with intelligent, smart, connected buildings. If you go to Niagara, you get to see everything happening with the top framework, or one of the top frameworks platforms in the world. If you come here, you get to hear all of the latest and greatest ideals and passions from the green building community. They come together at Greenbuilt. This buzz is contagious because it's bringing together the leaders, experts, and frontline professionals dedicated to sustaining buildings in their everyday work, and how the energy that they generate leads a lot of people. They leave a lot of people inspired and invigorated to go out there and make a difference in their communities. We talk about engaging the millennials and the young folks, and how some of the most important things to them when they choose a career is how can they make a positive impact in the world. And this is a kind of forum that really lends itself to that, because you walk away loaded with the latest and greatest ideas in sustainability, particularly
Where is it, Kenny?
buildings.
Where is it?
This one's in Boston. It's probably John Dunny is probably going to be having a big night there. It's in Boston. It's a 4-day event, and it's going to be at the Boston Convention Center. Let's see here.
We got a link to register on the site?
We sure do. It's register now. Click it, and it takes us right to the registration page. And I'm just trying to. I actually looked at the forum. It's really nice. It's the Boston Convention and Exhibition Center, the BCEC. It's from 8th through 10 November, and they're looking for everybody. They're looking for sponsors. They're looking for attendees, and they're looking for probably speakers. So, but the registration tells you all about it. They've got international delegations coming too, so I'm sure the Europeans make a big impact there. But
is Tom Brady going to be there?
I would imagine in Gisela.
No, man, they're not going to be. I'm not going to there. But you know what? If you think about it,
Giselle.
You called her Gisela, dude.
Yeah, I think what's the
German
German
word? You
word?
call her Gisela, man. Jeez, Kenny. Jeez, Gisela, man. That's even worse than what was the one we had trouble with last week?
Specificity.
Yeah. Could you be more specific about Gisela? Gisela Brady?
It's not. I'm telling you, it's not how. We're both wrong. She's from Brazil, I think, and the way they pronounce it you would not recognize.
So it is Gisela. You're probably right, Kenny. But hey, listen, while we're talking about that, though, it is kind of interesting. I know you lived in Europe for a long time. We've been to Europe several times with the EasyIO Global Conferences, and When you talk about sustainability, I mean, I think, the rest of the planet, especially Europe, is just so on it, right? And, I think California is out here. There's some mandates in California about sustainability, but I think it's a trend that's not going to go away, Kenny. Mm-hmm. And, as long as we're talking about deals and signing stuff up, the thing great about our industry is the more people want to do sustainability, the better it is for us at Sell Controls. But sell is the operative word here, so don't forget our special offer from Mark Jewell.
Hey, Kenny. Hey, Eric. Mark Jewell here. Thanks for having me back on the show. Hey, listen, it was interesting. I just finished a training in the Midwest for about 20 energy efficiency control specialists, and I know that's right up your alley. And I want to share a little story with you. At the beginning of that endeavor, I asked people, why are you here? In other words, what are you trying to accomplish by the end of today? And the topic, of course, was learning to sell efficiency effectively. And interestingly enough, the overwhelming majority of the people that responded said, I want to get a better handle on quantifying the energy savings that I might deliver so that when the CFO or some other financial professional or decision maker asks me, will you be able to give me a 2-year payback or 3-year payback or even 4-year payback, I can come back with some convincing numbers. So I need a tool set. I need something to show where my energy savings is going to come from and to make it pass the laugh test, right? It's funny. I was instantly reminded of what Steve Jobs said when he invented the iPad. People asked him, what did the public say they wanted in an iPad? And, he would look quizzically at the interviewer and say, if I asked people what they wanted in an iPad, they would have no idea what I'm talking about because an iPad didn't exist. And as a result, we had to formulate in our own minds what functionality, what benefits, what values an iPad should be able to fulfill. And of course, in countless instantiations since then, the iPad's gotten better and better and better. And of course, it's been imitated by countless other mini tablets, and smartphones have taken over a lot of the functionality. And now you can't imagine your world without contact management and calendaring and all this other fun stuff, even high quality photography, out on a smartphone in your hands, okay? So I gave that example to the audience. I said, the reason you told me that what you were hoping to accomplish today was to get a better handle on how you can quantify the savings that you can produce with your technical solution. The reason you did that is that that's the world that you live in, and it's a very limiting world. And fact of the matter is, and Ken and Eric, we've talked about this before on the show and in other forums, there really are no less than 3 buckets of benefits that any energy professional can bring to the table. The first being the utility cost financial savings. And of course, that's what folks were fixated on in the training, at least at the beginning of the first day. And they thought that if they could just give people a better indication of what the savings would be, everything would be fine. But realizing that the average U.S. commercial office building spends about $2.17 a square foot per year in utilities, and they spend about 100 times that in payroll, should you really be focusing on what exact percentage of the energy you could save them in the solution, or should you be focusing on things like decreasing absenteeism, or increasing worker productivity, or even cognitive function, which there's a lot of evidence to show that maladjusted temperature and maladjusted indoor air quality and that sort of thing has, all those things have a profound negative impact on cognitive performance and even attendance and basic worker health. These are the things that keep CFOs and CEOs up at night. So I shared with them, I said, well, maybe instead of focusing on how we can help you quantify energy savings, maybe we should talk about something bigger, something like what the customer really cares about, something like a benefit that can be measured with the yardstick that that customer is already using to measure his or her own success. And once I opened that door, holy cow, people's eyes opened, people started taking notes, and the day was a phenomenally productive coaching session because people realized that they were talking about 1% of the picture until the time that they walked into that room. And when they left at the end of a very busy, fast-paced day, they had all sorts of other perspectives, all sorts of other lenses they could view these benefits with and have a richer conversation with the decision maker. And frankly, they had the tools that would allow them to be more interesting conversationalists, to attract the attention of these decision makers and to make a more compelling value proposition. So I guess the punchline of that is underscored in this last week's training, was that your audience, which is comprised of international controls manufacturers, distributors, contractors, and specialists, is overly obsessed with payback, overly obsessed with quantifying how much savings you can get in kilowatts, kilowatt hours, overly obsessed with the bits, bytes, and blinking lights. And to the extent that they open their aperture and start looking at a panoramic view of what business people really care about, boy, it opens up the door, whole new vistas of decision making and whole new vistas of conversational excellence where you get people's attention, you can't keep that attention, and you get people emotionally involved in making a decision to go to a better control system. I mean, it could be for any reason. It could be increasing worker comfort. It could be for solving health problems, health safety, and HSE problems. It could be for any number of reasons. But the minute you start talking about those reasons, as opposed to bits, bytes, and blinking lights to the kilowatt hours, a whole new vista opens up for you, and you have a more interesting conversation. And ultimately, you have shorter sales cycles and higher closing ratios. So I figured I'd share that with you and with your audience. Hope it's of value. And we're looking forward to giving more of these insights in the coming weeks as I consider what I've been talking to my customers, my training customers about around the world. And we'll share that wisdom with you. So again, thanks for having me on the show.
He's got his online workshop that he's doing online for the first time. There's a special deal for the Control Trends community. There's a link right there on the Control Trends site. Encourage you to take a look at that. That's the best money you will spend in terms of growing your business. So,
well, it sure will be. And there it is right there. There's a selling energy, the efficiency sales professional boot camp. And Mark is really and truly committed to, he's very passionate about it. He's given a $75 discount on the virtual seats for the Control Trends listeners. And it's on the site. So,
yeah, this is a guy that typically has a waiting list, so he doesn't have to give anything away. He should be charging more money instead of less. But Kenny talked to him. He talked him out of it, and said, "Hey, we got to get the Control Trends community. Our Control Trends community will outsell everybody else, right?"
Well, the thing is that, as you said, this is our sweet spot in our business, and you've already attended the course, and, and I think I've gone through parts of it, or with the Honeywell promotional parts of it, where they did the extractions for it. But you're not born with the talent and knowledge on how to sell, especially in today's disruptive environments. You really truly have to know and practice and learn, and that's what he really does. It's actually a very intense deep dive into selling. They go through a lot of the simulations of the scenarios and how to respond to rejections and stuff like that. So I mean, this is very good stuff. So
I've got a wager for you, Kenny. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to think which countries can have more attendees, more registrations for Mark's thing from the Control Trends community, and I'm betting on India right now. I think Samir Pradham and our friends over there in India are going to have more people attend this class than anybody else. What are you betting? What country are you betting on?
I'm going to stick with the United States in North America because, I think that the time that we're in right now and talking to people on a day-to-day basis is that, like you said, the greatest expense is sending a sales force out to work every day. And the competitions, in other words, it's more difficult than it ever was before. It looks so easy, and we know there's a gigantic market out there. I mean, we hear from the experts is there's only 20-25% of the buildings out there actually have a building automation or DDC system, in their actual buildings and controlling their building space. And we know how important it is because of data. We got to have data. We know how important it is to get the 300 metric. Get people more productive and happier to come to work. And yet, it's more difficult than ever to approach people because of the time and the overwhelming sensations that they have, and like you always bring to bear, there's so many choices. Which one do I want? So when you have somebody that's very proficient and can really direct that conversation efficiently, effectively, there's a big market out there to capture. So your
two biggest objections, and Kenny and I have talked about this. Your two biggest objections to overcome with anybody now, it's not the money objection, it's the time and attention. How do you get their time? Because nobody has time to see anybody anymore. It's just nuts. And then once you get in front of them, how do you capture their attention so you can move on down to the thing? And Mark will teach you how to do that. And it's Kenny, I tell you, it's the best money you'll spend. But I tell you what, buddy, I think I saw our boy Leon Wolfer on there from Bueno. What do you got up next, big dog?
Well, yeah, this is another great, interview done at Realcomm Live in California at the Realcomm IBCOM. And, you talk about two smart guys. We met these guys up front. So Casey has Leon we met from Haystack. And then the other gentleman we met, he's actually a large master systems integrator from Canada. They actually have 3 large presences in across Canada, and he's a master systems integrator out of Canada. So those two together represent probably the latest and greatest approaches to operations, maintenance, and sustainability. And so, what was your impressions? I think we accused him of being a young guy, a young gun, but he's actually a little bit more. His appearance belies his age because he's actually been in the business almost 20 years. But really bright guy.
Are you kidding? Leon has.
Yeah,
Leon is one of the coolest looking guys. I mean, you can see him in Oliver Kenny's left shoulder, right there in the center. But Leon's a cool dude. I think a hipster when I think of Leon. Man, he's cool, but he's bright. I mean, he's super, super bright. We've heard him speak at a couple of conferences. Super, super bright guy. If you saying he's been 20 years in the business, he started when he was
almost. I think he's had an early start because he comes in from the computer industry. But if you remember at Haystack, he was on stage and they compared him to the young girl about being too young, and he took offense to it. And he corrected the audience and said, "Hey, I appreciate that, but I've actually got this many years experience." And I don't know exactly what it was.
Past his bedtime or something like that. And he said, "Wait a second, no." So you're saying he's almost 20 years in the business. So that means he could anywhere between 3 and 19, huh?
I'm probably saying he's probably like anywhere from low 30s to high 30s.
But tell our, it's kind of great we got Leon on because, get this interview because, again, they're talking about unique ways to use analytics to make your building perform better. And they go into everything from, how do you use analytics to make your elevators more efficient, not necessarily more efficient, but safer, to improve the customer experience and all walks. We talk a lot about the Paul, what's his name? Paul, from ESSI, Paul
Oswald.
Paul Oswald. Is he call it the 10x, 100x, 1000x, or whatever? We call it the $300 rule, but whatever it is. But basically, it's
back. It's a 110, 1,000. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah. But so basically, you're spending $1 per square foot on energy, $10, 10 times that on all the stuff you put in from the equipment to your building, and then 100 times the energy cost is what you're basically spending to have your people work in there. So anything you do to have that work experience be better, where they can be more efficient, is a huge win. And I think both these guys are totally, tuned into that. And it's just interesting to hear how they mine data with their software and some of their case studies to use that to make the occupant experience better and improve that the productivity factor.
Sure. And, I couldn't help but I love the way you correct me and everything, but, the background on this gentleman here, this young guy speaking right now, he actually got his degree, Bachelor of Engineering honors from the Australian National University back in 2006. He worked for he was a business development manager for Exergy from 2006 to 2013. He founded Optimize in 2012 to present, and then he started Bueno Systems in 2013. So that's why he was very sensitive. So, you're looking at a guy probably in the building space, since the year 2002. So that's
I'm going to tell you what, though, Kenny, I just dig the way he dresses, man. I think I'm going to get a wardrobe change, and he's just a cool dude, man. Any way you cut it, he's a cool dude. So
he's smart. He's smart, and
So you're saying if you're really smart, you get to dress cool? Is that one of the indicators?
I think when you're really smart and you're off the chain, you don't really pay attention to dress code. You set, you wear what's comfortable, and you wear what you feel. Who
are the guys we met when we were out in Silicon Valley talking? They were telling us that they never trust anybody in a suit. So if you showed up for a meeting in Silicon Valley and you were dressed up, they immediately knew you didn't know what the hell you were talking about. It's so counterintuitive, right? We came up in the business, you were told, you got to dress up, you got to look right. And now you're finding out, at least with this next generation, if you're dressed too well, they figure you don't know what the hell you're talking about. It works against you. So if that's the case, Leon is definitely the smartest guy in the room, man.
No, he's just, but the product's doing real well. And again, they're coming from, it's the global thing. I was listening to something on globalization and we're talking about all that, the really impact stuff like Bitcoin and how, it's challenging the way, all the disrupting the banks, for God's sake, in the central banks. And then you have, the other, the bit chain coming, and, we're going to see the real estate agency is going to get challenged, because all the middle players, all those add-ons and all those additional costs and duplicate costs. And so when you see guys coming at the industry that we're in so hard and heavy with this engineering backgrounds and understanding how things work, you're going to start to see, significant changes in the building environment and building environment optimization and the application of data. Because again, he was at Haystack, so he's digging that, Haystack tagging thing. He understands the importance of that. And, as we see in another post coming up here on ControlTalk or Control Trends, actually, Haystack is getting put back into the main plate of all the other shows. So Niagara recognized it. Realcomm, Ibicon recognized it. So I think that's going to be one of the top trends of
So
2017.
Trivial Pursuits, who was the first person to recognize it?
What, Haystack?
Yeah.
Well, of course, the folks out of the
No,
Tritium family, Franks.
no. Of course, Control Trends. We covered the very first conference.
Oh, of course. Well, I always love that.
Yes.
But I thought you were talking about who created Haystack. And it came out of that group of Brian Frank and the boys.
Creating this stuff's the easy part. No, I'm just teasing. No offense, Brian Frank. Those guys are smart as hell. But listen, dude, well, I am so pumped up about our guest this week. So, dude, we could talk an hour just introducing this guy with his credentials, but why don't you give us the short version, and for our Control Trends community, just understand that that's just the tip of the iceberg. So, Kenny, introduce our guest, please.
Well, it's so true, Eric. I mean, we have a very, very special guest here. We have Matthew Schwartz. He's a senior associate at Altura Associates, and he's got a litany of those credentials. He's a certified energy manager. He's a certified building commissioning professional with the AEE. He's done over 40 buildings, a portfolio that does energy management and analytics for over 40 buildings. And one of the most famous projects he worked on was the PNC Plaza building in Pittsburgh. So that makes him an associate Steeler fan. Welcome to the show, Matt.
Welcome to the show, Matt.
Thanks, Kenny. Thanks, Eric. How you guys doing today?
We're doing great, man. Just so you know, that's where Kenny got his first kiss. So in many ways, Kenny owes you a lot right there, brother.
Oh, man, memories.
memories. And Kenny, what you didn't mention is he's also a prolific thought leader in our industry. I mean, we first got turned on to Matt through automatedbuildings.com. Matt, you got so many great articles there. And, of course, we see you at all the conferences. I think last time we saw you were rocking and rolling, beating on a bongo at Haystack Connect. So maybe we'll start with that, man. What was your take on Haystack Connect this year?
Oh, yeah, that sounds great. And, thanks for having me on the show, guys.
Welcome.
I'm excited to be here. I know we've been chasing each other for a while to do this, so it's fun to finally sit down in the cockpit here and do it. So Haystack Connect this year was great. I want to take a step back, though, to the first Haystack Connect. Met a lot of faces at that conference that have apparently only been successful over the course of the last 6 years, working with the tools that we have in the community and everybody supporting one another. You guys probably remember I gave a talk about connected commissioning at that first conference, and it seems to be remembered by a lot of folks, and we like to keep riffing on those threads. We've only expanded on the work that we were doing at the time, and it looks like everyone else has as well. This year's Haystack conference was a lot of fun for me, because we've been there for all three of them thus far. And just to see everybody building on what they've been doing and being successful in doing so is sign of the times and proof that we're all on to something big here.
Yeah, do you think, Matt, I mean, when it first came out, and we were at that first conference as well and heard you speak then, and, it was one of these things, it was a great idea, a great theory, and I think what was so encouraging to me, is especially with this conference, is you just see, like you said, how it's grown and how it's been embraced. And I mean, that to me is the real story behind the story, is not that it's just a great idea, but how the community, these different companies got together and promoted it, and look where we are and look where we're headed, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I tell you, when we gave that first connected commissioning lecture, at the time we were still on the forefront of plugging analytics into commissioning. Now it's mandatory. I would tell you today, there's not a project that doesn't go out the door here that we're not connecting to the data systems that are a part of these projects and really integral to the building's operations, and finding ways to take that data and enhance not just our service to the operator, but I think more strategically working with our clients to integrate that data into their workflows. And that's becoming a key to almost every proposal that goes out the door here, is making sure that our customers and our clients have data integrated into their workflows. That's key, because we can help you. We can provide services that leverage your data and find issues within your building faster, more efficiently, and track those to resolution. But the real key to success is making sure that you as an owner, as a stakeholder in the building or campus of real estate, you're leveraging that data and finding ways to integrate that into your workflows so that you can be persistently successful on an ongoing basis.
No, I think so. And I think this is your quote, isn't it? Which is business shapes the tools and the tools reshape your business. That's yours, isn't it?
Yeah.
One of your quotes is so true. And then you talk about, I think along the same line, the value of the commissioning process, right? Which is something sort of you guys have really sort of brought that to the forefront, correct?
Yep. Yeah, I would say so. I'd say that from the get-go, we've been leveraging data to enhance the service to the client. And ultimately, based in commissioning, we're rooted in commissioning services, new construction, retro commissioning. That's, retro commissioning is rapidly evolving into monitoring-based commissioning, ongoing, which is only further supported by, maybe not even further supported, a requirement of monitoring-based commissioning is to have a connection to your data to be able to track the performance of the measures that were implemented and show the cost savings on the back end and the energy savings and the greenhouse gas emissions reductions that are a result of these projects. Tracking and monitoring that and showing that to the customer at the end of the day is absolutely key.
Well, Matt, I tell you what, I'm very impressed. I'm on your website right now, and I tell you the buildings that you have in your portfolio are just they're the key keystone buildings in our industry. But you're always on the cutting edge. For instance, you were talking earlier about edge controllers. Tell us a little bit, how you take you advancing. You were way ahead of the game on the analytics and bringing it into mainstream. But now you're into something else. Tell us about the edge controllers and the impact that's making.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's a big buzzword in the industry right now, edge controllers. I think we're still defining what that means. Something that's near and dear to our hearts at Altura is implementation. I would tell you that this company was founded around the concept of not delivering reports that are going to sit on the shelves to our clients. Rather, we want to see implementation. And that's gotten us into a lot of fun projects, including projects recently where we've had the chance to take this concept of edge controllers and do it. We worked with a campus client, a higher education client that has a massive compressed air infrastructure, centralized and branching out to all of their buildings on campus, and wanted to know, where are the leaks, where are the problems with this system. We've heard energy managers talking about compressed air systems being an opportunity for energy conservation and cost recovery. How do we do it? Where do we go? So we deployed 11 edge controllers running analytics on board in strategic locations all over the campus, and we're pulling in pressure and flow readings for their compressed air systems and showing them where it's going, where is the air going, where is the energy going. And, one thing we got to learn through that exercise was having analytics on a controller that's going out in the field makes it so easy to bring the data back. We were able to bring those controllers in-house here and set them up ahead of time strategically, deploy them in the field, make sure that we were getting our data, but that data was already formatted in the same format that our cloud analytics platform runs at. So made it real easy, made it a real cinch for us to pull that data out of the field, but also trend it and store it locally in a format that's accessible by other third parties. So they have the data on site, but we're also pulling that into the cloud effortlessly in the same format. And we've been doing great things on that project. Those controllers have enabled us to not only identify, but also implement leak repairs and show them a picture of how much they spend on compressed air and where it's going.
So for our community out there, are there any particular edge controllers that you've found to be really, really work really well?
Yeah, well, we for that particular project, we used a product by BASSG building.
Alper.
I think you know Alper.
Oh yeah.
And so our friend Alper, who's always been a great support, has a device called the EAC controller. I think that stands for Edge Analytics Controller. And so we used that product because we knew we'd get good support on the back end. And it's the first product we've been exposed to that runs Sedona, which is an open framework. We like open here at Altura. We could talk for hours about that if you guys want to.
Well, I've got a question for you about that after you talk about this, because Kenny, he's got a word that just you talk about a wordsmith. Our friend right here he can turn a phrase, but well, I tell you what, let me jump in right now because we're talking Sedona. But
absolutely.
But you termed a phrase called vertical vendor, which I think is awesome. And you did an article with Ken Sinclair. This goes back to 2015, I think, but where you're essentially talking about. BACnet does not necessarily mean open, and be wary of vertical vendors. Tell our control system community a little bit more about that.
Yeah, it's a thread that we could talk for a long time about, and one of my favorites. One of the things that we're constantly asked by our clients is, what automation system should I be using? And I would tell you, several years ago, I would say the one that you can get the best support on would be the one that I would go with, because at the end of the day, these systems require ongoing maintenance and support, and they need to be installed by qualified individuals that know what they're doing and can deliver on the outcomes that you as the owner are looking to get. That's sort of a problem when it comes down to the product. There's a lot of products out there that are proprietary in nature, and they can only be serviced by particular outfits. That's great if the particular outfit that's providing you service is doing a great job. But I can tell you from a lot of exposure to building owners that not everybody is. And so we work with clients on the front end when doing retrofit, upgrade projects, new construction projects, to make sure that our clients are recommending and specifying products that are more open to support. So essentially products that can be serviced by multiple vendors, not just one vendor, not a vertical per se. And, that's key. That's key, especially if you're a large portfolio client that has a lot of real estate and you are in many territories that you're not going to get good service in all of them. To future-proof your building with a product that can be serviced by many vendors, a community of vendors that share ideas and work together, that's important. So that's a lot of what we do here.
Very cool.
Well, I could say, it's very exciting to talk to you, Matt, and because you're bringing us on focus on not only the trends, and that's what we track, and we love to hear what you're saying, because we covered the edge devices, we talked about your assistance in providing BAS master planning and design, but you guys also roll your sleeves up there, and you're not afraid to go out there and truly hands-on test and know from your empirical information what the best systems are and how things like BACnet and all this integration stuff works. Why don't you tell us about how your style of doing that?
Yeah, well, I can tell you that it all started as a commissioning agent. As a commissioning agent, I see many different buildings by different architects and engineers, and of course, different general contractors, mechanical contractors, and building automation contractors. So we see a little bit of everything, and sometimes we see a lot of everything. But through that experience, is how we got to where we are today, through the experience of seeing all these different systems and how owners interact with them, both during construction and after a project's been handed over, has gotten us into this environment of helping our owners spec the systems that are right. I would also tell you that we've gotten so down in the weeds with the automation systems that, and that's because we wanted to implement the fixes to the problems that we were identifying through our commissioning services, that we've gotten so close all the way to the edge with these controllers that for some clients will actually help implement the entire retrofit for them. We've got one client in particular that we've helped them integrate some of their buildings to a common platform just so they can gain better visibility to what their buildings are doing, enhance the comfort tenfold for their tenants. And, this is something we do for all of our clients. But in this case, they didn't have an existing vendor who was providing automation to them. So, we will put our foot out there in special scenarios for a number of reasons. Because one, we know we can do a really great job. This concept of consulting engineers doing the controls, and that's somewhat unheard of in our industry. So it's great for us. It's great exposure for us, and it's a great product on the back end for our clients to have us do the controls.
Sure is. Well, sure. I mean, just not to interrupt you there, Matt, because we were tracking the master systems integrator and how that's like a function of a contractor that really and truly is a wizard of all the disparate systems and actually can take everything from the elevators to the smoke, fire and smoke, and HVAC. But to have an engineering company able to play at that high level of integration is a rarity, and I think that's got to be a really big, star on the top of your portfolios, is that you can deliver a vetting process that really eliminates the chaff, and really brings brings to the forefront what's important.
Absolutely. And in the future, I really see the two worlds of automation, or call it system integrators, and commissioning colliding. And those are the folks at the end of the day on a building that are sitting together in a electrical closet on a bucket somewhere, making the building run. And a good commissioning agent and a good systems integrator can do amazing work. And those worlds can collide a little bit more, I think, and you'll see commissioning folks in the future, maybe soon, providing optimization that writes back to the control system, and vice versa. We're already seeing system integrators bring on analytics that can inform the commissioning folks. So these worlds have overlap, and I think as we move forward, some of the disruption in the market is going to be commissioning controls, and controls providing commissioning feedback. So more to come there.
Well, I think all of us have had the experience, or kind of know that once the test and balance guy comes in on a new building and sets it up and gets everything set just right, that thing stays in calibration for probably about 10 minutes after he leaves or she leaves, and then it's completely out. So, speak, if you will, about the possible scenarios. You've alluded to it, right? But with the constant commissioning or with analytics, I mean, your building could pretty much be. I think the term you used was retro or recommission or constant commissioning. Speak about those possibilities, if you would, Matt. Those possibilities
are here today. There is nothing stopping us, and we are implementing this where there's an understanding with the project team of how it can be successful. We have the analytics tools now. We have the building automation system integration tools to get that data into our analytics. We have case studies showing where we brought every last data point in that was relevant, and there's no reason that your building shouldn't have the analytical tools to find these faults the moment they exist and have that emailed to you, whether it be in a digest or on a dashboard that summarizes what the high level faults are in your building. So the engineer that never sleeps is another phrase that I use from time to time.
I love it.
That's your analytics, and it should be running in the background, telling you every morning when you sit down to digest what's going on in your building or your portfolio of buildings, where to focus your time and your efforts to get the biggest bang for your buck. And this is the push right now. I think this is the biggest push right now, is to get analytics into the large, into all the buildings that we have today to work with. And
we know, Matt, we talk about in buildings, and we talk about our common denominators and our common currencies. Our buildings and the way air and water move through a building, and occupants, getting maximum productivity and reducing downtimes and everything. But it sounds so easy, but it can be so hard. But you guys have actually got to the point where you're global. You've got some projects where you've taken your company's your style, your approach, and tell us about some of the global projects that you've worked on.
Yeah, absolutely. So essentially, what we've come to learn, and the way we've acquired a couple of these global projects, is that these massive scale projects that have hundreds of pieces of equipment, you can try and commission those with a traditional approach, sans analytics, but to really test, and I mean vet that the equipment is working 100%, you have to have analytics to test large scale projects. in a timely, cost-effective manner. Not to say that it couldn't be done, but not timely and not in a cost-effective manner. So we've demonstrated that to some of our larger clients that have bigger numbers in the real estate category. And therefore, they're working on projects that are international and have asked us to please, support the local commissioning folks that are working on these remote projects as an executive commissioning authority, and deploy the analytics so that we can see what's happening across the full breadth of the project. So we've been engaged as an executive role to oversee the local commissioning authorities and to really validate broad scale that the building's working and provide feedback as soon as possible to the trades that are putting the building together. Because when you're working with a large number of unique equipment or repetitive equipment, like hundreds of VAVs or potentially into the thousands on some of these projects, finding an issue before it's been copied and pasted throughout the project is key.
Nice.
And we can do that with the analytics. So we enforce something called bench testing. As a part of all of our commissioning projects, we enforce bench testing, and this works great on the larger scale international projects too. That means when you program that first VAV, when you program that first air handler, we're going to plug into it with analytics and spend time with the vendor who's programming that before it gets mass replicated on the project, and commission it virtually on the bench. And only then, after it passes a rigorous test, can it be rolled out to 1,000 VAVs or 20 major air handlers and put into operation. And I think those are the kind of tricks of the trade that we deploy that get us engaged in the international projects of scale.
Very
That's
cool.
awesome.
Well, we got quite a few people in our international community that are going to probably be very happy to hear that, Matt. So another trend that Kenny and I track a lot, and we hear a lot about, I know you do too, Matt, is, some people call it the $300 rule. Other people call it the 1X, 10X, 1,000 or 100X, which basically, gets to the fact of the matter that people are really trying to have the people in the space be more productive. Speak, if you will, about how do you guys approach that when somebody says, hey, we want to affect that 10X, the productivity of the people in the space? What's reality versus theory with this, and what's sort of been your experience with it?
Well, I'll share a very real experience that I've been able to repeat time and time again on retro commissioning projects and on some DDC retrofit projects. People are key. Bottom line, analytics will definitely provide feedback on what your building's doing, but giving that to a person to implement a solution is what's going to impact the people in that building, and making folks happy and feel rewarded and giving them an environment to work in every day that's comfortable, reliable, and is so consistently is the key to enhancing productivity. Productivity is actually a very difficult thing for an energy engineer to put a metric on or measure. Believe us, we work on this with our clients, and every client has a different way of measuring it. So it's a challenge. But what I can tell you is that engaging with the tenants early on is a part of the project and not treating them like a facet of the building. They're not an air handler. They're not a VAV. They're the people that are gonna, be happy or unhappy as a result of your work. So, I find that engaging the tenants directly, asking them where are the hot spots, the cold spots, what is problematic for you in your day-to-day life here at the building, and incorporating that into our retrofit repairs and adjustments that we make when the new controls go in, or on a retro commissioning project, making sure that we take that feedback when we're looking at trouble zones in a building and incorporating all of that. And then on the back end, following up with the tenants after we've implemented fixes, and whether that's directly, sometimes that's directly, or it's through our client, engaging those tenants for feedback to make sure that, they're still happy on the after implementation. I think that's very important. And
Awesome.
That to me is the best way to enhance productivity.
Awesome
Matt,
stuff.
This is great stuff. And how does our Control Trends community get hold of you? What's the best way to contact you?
Oh, you can, check out our website, AlturaAssociates.com. That's going to be the best way to get a hold of somebody here at the firm. You will probably encounter Mr. Jeff Berge if you reach out to us on our direct line, and he can steer you to the right personnel to handle whatever it is you're looking for. And myself, my personal email is mschwartz@AlturaAssociates.com. Schwartz spelled SCHWARTZ.
Matt, I tell you what, dude, we could talk to you. Will you come back on the show, please? This has been so great. I can't tell you how much we appreciate you taking time to be with us. Can we get you to come back on?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Let's stay in touch with each other. There's always new things going on here, so just let's stay connected. I know we see each other at the conferences, but now we've done the first one, so let's set this as the precedent for the rest.
That's what I said after my first divorce. Now we've done the first one, so let's just. It's been Matt Schwartz from Altura and Associates. And Matt, thanks so much, man. You can find Matt at the conferences. Please reach out to this guy. He is super bright. If you happen to go to Haystack Connect, he'll be the guy behind the big drums when they're playing the music night there. Matt, thanks a lot, buddy, and have a great weekend.
Thank you, Kenny. Thank you, Eric. Appreciate both your time.
That's what we have up next, big dog.
We had Ken's calendar. We had the free webinar coming up, Fire and Smoke and Codes. That's coming out of the Blemo corner. And once again, Blemo has just a really, really top shelf presentation. So the webinar covered the codes and standards governing the maintenance and replacement of actuators on fire and smoke damper applications. So they review in depth the NFPA 80 and NFPA 105 requirements on how to properly repair and replace non-operable actuators in order to ensure the safety of the building, and how you could do certain things without affecting your UL rating. So the discussion included the International Fire Code testing requirements for UL 555 fire and UL 555S smoke. And so on new construction as well. So it's very good stuff. It's going to be held Wednesday, July 26th at 1 p.m. And there is a registration required. So please take the link off of Control Trends and register for this important webinar.
Yeah, Kenny, I think Blemo does do a great job with that. But fire and smoke dampers, those are the gotchas. That's kind of like you can get away with not paying your taxes for a certain period of time, and then once you get caught, you are totally nailed. And the thing about fire and smoke dampers is the only time that they're really important is if you have a fire, right? Those things have got to work. But if you're not testing them, right? And if they're inoperable and you don't have a written documentation where you've tested these per the code, you are up the creek without a paddle. So I have a question for you. Maybe we should ask our guest on this, or we can maybe send Leon an email. It seems like, or I'm wondering if using analytics, there's some way you could automatically test these dampers automatically and then record the results using analytics so you wouldn't have to manually go out and do that. What do you think, man, the myth, the legend?
Yeah, they already have that feature. Some that's a requirement and some specifications to do that. And that I don't know
automatically. Where they automatically do it and then record that it's been done.
Well, yeah, you get the operational results of it. Yes, I think I know a lot of our customers write that into the stuff that they're doing, so they periodically test it, just like the smoke detectors and the fire detection system. Analytics would be probably another way to do that. You probably write that into. What I don't know that you could find out the Blemo webinar is even if you have that, is that good enough, or do you have to manually have somebody go out and check it? So those are things I just don't know. But if you don't know, you can find out by going and attending this webinar, right, Kenny? Yeah, and the thing is that they change, Eric, and and again, you have the national standards, and then you have local standards. So the thing about fire and smoke, you're right, you can never underestimate when a thing, it's always a life and death scenario, and God help everybody that doesn't have the professional tenacity to make sure you follow through on that stuff. That's the stuff that can't be pencil whipped. It's got to be done, and there's a program. So I think what you're seeing is that there's probably a lot of the automatic tests, where they run things open and closed or spring return them and see what happens, and then that's documented, and then probably you have to have an eyeball, that'd be reinforced by somebody signing off on it, saying that they can certify this to be correct. And then it's almost like the elevator industry, man. I'll tell you, I don't want to ride an elevator that doesn't have a current certificate, and then some of them say a certificate on file in the office or something, especially if you go into, some of these places we travel to and you're staying at, a 10-year, 20-year-old hotel that was, long in the tooth now, but it used to be, a cat's meow back when it was, just
back
built.
in World War I.
But some of it, you're thinking, man, I'd like to see the certificate if we may, before I get in this thing and go up a couple of floors. But that's why it's so important to keep current. If anything, we get out of stuff because you and I talk offline all the time on. There's so many things to do every day. What are you going to do? So you have to triage. You have to have 2 people because one person can't possibly attend to everything. And then, when you do decide there's 10 things to do, which one takes precedence? Anything to do with life safety, I think, always to me is always caught my eye. It's one thing to have nice indoor air quality and great CO2 and demand ventilation is important stuff, but the stuff that's really important is the stuff that has permanent consequences.
Oh, well said, Kenny. Well said. What we have up next, big dog?
Well, we got some more fun with the Department of Energy. I get a kick out of this because, like I say, I'm on the
fun and Department of Energy in the same sentence.
Well,
Are you
these
pencil
guys
whipping this?
No, I'll tell you, these people, they got some young folks in this stuff, and they make it very interesting. And it's, they're using the same, logos and everything. The Building America, U.S. Department of Energy, it's, we all see that in the DOE Energy, that's a big, well-recognized logo. But the people, the attitude inside of here is changing. And what's going on here, too, is that there's a lot of really interesting work being done. The government has access to the same thing that we do. They've got the social media tools. And this is a really good little video here on what's going on, and how this is taking a front row seat now. This isn't, houses and staying, getting sustainability at the localized level. And some of the initiatives that they have are really aggressive, and they're showing all these are the cardinal sins of a house. We've got, in 10, 20 years, we can reduce the energy footprint of the residential house, I think they said, by 20%. And they talk about how much electricity we're all using in our homes, and I think it registers 22%. But they'll talk about they go into furnaces, and they just showed you the reduction in size, and then they look at some of these large houses, where all the lights are on at the same time.
Oh man, that's a really cool video.
And, I'm just impressed because, sometimes you find information from areas where you least expect them, but the whole DOE thing. And the next post we have is that they've got contests. They've got money that they're trying to give away for innovation. They inspire innovation. So we've got some really smart people out there that work day in and day out. Some of their ideas that they just take for granted because it works well for themselves. If they really, took it to, a deep thought to it, they might be able to replicate that effort across a very large scale. And there's programs and incentive programs that you put your project ideas in writing, you submit them, they have a contest, and they give money away. And then, to me, that's it's the fastest way to get stuff done. If the government tries to regulate and push it down the throats of everybody's going to be resistive. You have a federal program, and again, states have the right to do what the federal government doesn't impose on them. So each state regulates things differently, and so you don't have uniformity of adoption. And that's why you have adoption rates like California. I think California is leading the whole world in sustainability. What they're trying to do. I think because of just some of the issues that they've had to fight, and just their attitude, they can afford to do it. Yes, Western Europe was driven by energy. Just didn't have. There was no expense. They couldn't waste anything. I mean, everything was done dynamically, whether it was a car and parking spots or refrigerators, whatever. They took the least, expensive footprint and energy use. So, but these are some good ideas, and we're going to continue posting them probably like once a week, every 2 weeks, because they want you to repurpose it. They reward it by giving you more information, and then I think it's just great ideas. And they actually have.
Sounds like it. It'd be kind of cool if we got somebody to come on the show from there.
Well, they send representatives out there. They were certainly available. They were present at the Realcomm IBCon. There was representatives from different government agencies, but the Department of Energy in California are hand in hand. Yeah. That's their little workshop. Yeah.
That's covered. What we have up next, big dog?
Well, it's your friend and my friend. These two guys from Mexico are some of the coolest guys. Alfredo and Carlos have invited Realcomm IBCon to bring a mini version down there, or maybe take it to Cancun or somewhere. What did you think of these guys? Are they sharp or what?
They are super, super sharp. Carlos Romain and Alfredo Medlick, and man, they are master systems integrators extraordinaire out of Mexico City. I mean, you talked to them on our video interview, Kenny, about a job they done using both Optigo and what was the product that Brian Turner sold them? Optico.
Well, it was Controlco was a contractor, and they used Optico for their networks.
Right,
so
right.
they I'm trying to think, probably the Cadero product where they're doing analytics, But,
well, something like that. But these guys are super sharp. They're great. They've come on the show before to give us sort of an update on the Mexican market. We give them a little bit of a hard time in the show, but hey man, we got to get you back on, keeping us updated on the Mexico City market. But super sharp guys. They were finalists for the Control Trends Master Systems Integrator of the Year. Great guys. I think if you watch the interview Kenny and I did with them, you can get a feel for how great these guys. Embar Solutions is the name of their company, and you can know they're cool if they take an Uber from Mexico City to San Diego. Huh?
To hear them coming from Mexico, they parked on the border, took an Uber across the border to the Realcomm Ibicon Hotel or the convention center. It floored me.
But now, didn't you tell me that Alfredo at one point in time ran Honeywell Latin America?
I don't know what his official title was, but he was a high-ranking executive for Honeywell, yes. And he knew everybody we knew. And he said, oh, I know him. I worked with him. Oh, yeah, he's a good guy, or she's a great woman. And, and I was there and this time. And he knew everybody we knew in the industry from the Honeywell side of the family. So, yeah.
Well, speaking of somebody who knows everybody, that is our good friend Josh Bradshaw. I talked to Josh today. Josh is on with a new company. We're probably going to get him on next week. He tried to tell me a couple of things he was doing, but he says, if I tell you this, I'll have to kill you. But this is a company that's kind of behind the companies of a lot of companies in terms of innovation, Apple being one. He did tell me that. So looks like we'll have Josh on next week. I don't think they'll let him wear his bow tie anymore, but we'll see. Josh Bradshaw is our contact in Silicon Valley. So he's telling me something about the cool technology that's coming out and how people are sort of reinventing not just smart buildings, Kenny, but just sort of reinventing the way we do everything. So that'll be a cool thing. All right, Big Dog, we have anything else before we hop off?
Yeah, we had Prolon put up a nice webinar for CGNA yesterday, and Angie Jarvis reached out to us, and they're real serious about some of the new products they've come out. They've come a long way. They really have, and they work hard. And they introduced a new I/O module that I talked to some guys this morning, and they said that this thing now is for real. It's the race to the small space. The guys from Prolon have really and truly bumped up the applications. For instance, they know now that they have it's a very cost-effective communicating system. Probably the race to the small space DDC. They've got plant controllers now. They've got things now that make them a real serious control company. So that I'm happy for them.
Well, they started with the VVT, right? Let's put in perspective. Sure. They started with a real easy to use but effective VVT system, and that's where they started. It's a smaller company out of Canada. And what we like about them, Kenny, is you get great tech support. It's reminiscent of days gone by. They're small enough now. They build a quality product, but boy, you really, really get great support. And they had boiler modules. They went from there to boiler modules, but it is designed for the contractor that really doesn't want to use a laptop, right? You can use a laptop, but you don't have to have one. And so they just keep expanding the product line. So I think I'll talk to Angie and see if we can't get a link, if they'll allow us to put a link to this webinar. So if you wanted to see it, you can click on it, see the webinar where they go through this new.
Oh yeah, well, she did. She told us the PowerPoint is already accessible to us, and we'll go ahead and it's YouTube, so we'll put that onto the site. That'll be the last post for the week. Yeah, but you're right. The Flex IO is the big excitement stuff, and the new operation sequences for their chiller start stop, the multiple exhaust fan applications, enable lighting. So now they're adding those different aspects to take it into a system level. So they got systems occupancy. They already monitor humidity and temperature, so that these expanding products really fulfill that that commercial building space where it's the wide end of the triangle, the deep and wide part where people don't have anything and they want something more than maybe a programmable thermostat. Yeah. This is starting to hit into that sweet spot.
Well, very, very cool. Well, there you go. We have another week on Control Talk Now, your Smart Buildings video casts and podcasts. A very, very special thanks to Matt Schwartz from Altura Associates. Great stuff from Matt. We appreciate you guys tuning in. We'll be back next week. Until then, remember, be bold and stay in control.
Indeed, Eric.
Indeed, Kenny Smiley.